How would you rate your communication skills? How about your listening skills? These are skills we must use every day, so it's important to use them effectively. Did you know that it matters to God how we use our tongue? In fact, Proverbs says the tongue has the power of life and death. And one day on the day of judgment, God will hold us accountable for every empty or careless word that we have spoken. The Bible gives many instructions on how we should communicate with God and with fellow men. Today, we will focus on what God teaches us about communicating with each other. James 1:19 says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." Note that God doesn't say we can't be angry, but He does warn us about becoming angry, and this is simply because we often speak out of anger and say things that are filthy and hurtful. When we speak out of anger, we are no longer showing God's love, and this can ruin our testimony as Christians and damage the name of Jesus Christ. We should constantly examine what is in our hearts. If our hearts are filled with evil, well, then our speech will reflect that, no matter how hard we try to hide it. Jesus reminds us, a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. Many of the communication breakdowns that ruin relationships come from not being quick to listen, not being slow to speak, and not being slow to anger. We usually want other people to know our thoughts before we listen to theirs. This often leads to confusion and arguments and the quick rise to anger. Does this sound familiar to you? Does it maybe happen with your parents a lot, or with your significant other, with your friends? It is far wiser to listen first and understand fully what the other person's thoughts are. This gives you the full scope of the situation and allows you to respond more effectively. Proverbs says, to answer before listening, that is folly and shame. Let me give you a really simple example. Whenever my parents go back to Taiwan, I have to go over to their house every week to water their plants. This is a job I honestly hate because I'm not good at it. In the past, I have accidentally killed some of their plants by overwatering them. So this time is no different. Before they went back, my dad spoke to me on the phone and he told me to go and take care of their plants. I expressed once again that I'm not very good at it. Maybe they can ask their tenants who live downstairs so that they can check on their plants more often. My dad quickly became angry and he said, "Is it too much to ask of you to water my plants? Just water it carefully. Don't kill it like you did before." Of course, when I heard it, I was so offended because he thought I was purposely doing a bad job and not being careful. But I knew if I got angry and yelled back, this just wouldn't go anywhere. So I calmly told him, it's not that I'm not careful or not willing to help, it's that I need more detailed instructions from you. Oh, when you tell me don't water it too much, I don't know what that means. Is half a cup of water too much? A jug too much? Dad, if I told you to go play the piano carefully right now, would you know what to do? He paused and said, I see your point. Come over tomorrow and I will show you. So we ended this argument peacefully because I was quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. It's very natural, but vain, to think we know what other people are trying to say before they finish. And we assume what we have to say is of great interest to them. Unfortunately, this is the result of spending years learning how to read, write, and speak in school. We have been taught in school and by society to speak our minds. not as much focus has been on attentive listening, to the point where we deeply understand the other person from their circumstances. I don't know how many of you know this, but in the Ontario language curriculum, listening skills are supposed to be a major part of the oral communication mark on an elementary report card. The first overall expectation states that students will listen in order to understand and respond appropriately in a variety of situations. However, this is a really difficult skill to assess. So most teachers, including myself, focus almost entirely on the second expectation, which is using speaking skills appropriately. Why? Well, because this is so much easier to evaluate. Just think about how many presentations your teachers have made you do in school. We are all taught to express ourselves as much as we want, but it is very foolish and selfish to let our self-expression get in the way of really understanding other people. Proverbs emphasizes this point. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. Apostle Paul also said, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others." So what are some practical ways to improve our listening skills? Well, first, make eye contact with the person you're talking to or listening to and smile, right? You can nod to acknowledge that you're actually listening. Ask questions to show either your interest or to clarify things that you're not clear on. I do this very often with my colleagues at school, also with, at church, such as Pastor Ronnie. I ask him a lot of questions to clarify exactly what he wants me to do. I also ask confirmation questions to make sure I'm understanding him correctly. You can also try to block out distractions, such as using your phone. And finally, try to listen for common ground and not focus on rehearsing what you're going to say next. So when we do finally speak, what should we say? The Bible tells us, "Let your speech always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you will know how you should respond to each person." What does it mean to let your speech be with grace? Well, it means to speak what is spiritual, kind, sensitive, truthful, loving, and purposeful. And what does it mean to let your speech be seasoned with salt? Well, remember, salt not only flavors, but it also prevents decay. So a Christian speech should be a blessing to others as well as purifying influence in this decaying world. How we say what we say is just as important. With modern technology, it's really difficult sometimes to express tone through words on a screen, right? So it's even more important that we speak clearly and kindly. Proverbs remind us that a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. When we speak kindly, truthfully, and with love, we can most likely diffuse negative feelings and promote positive relationships. Here are some practical tips for improving our speaking skills. Speak clearly. Okay? That means try to avoid jargons and avoid rambling. Always be respectful, even if you're speaking to the people you're closest to. Use I statements instead of accusatory language. Apologize when needed. Try to be forgiving. And, don't cut the other person off. Let them finish. Sometimes maybe try not to fill silence with just, talk for no reason. And finally, try to express appreciation and encouragement as often as you can. As Christians, we should constantly examine our communication. We should never hide behind the safety of, a device or use harsh and ungodly words towards others. We should consider our body language, our facial expression. Our body language can easily communicate anger or hatred towards others, even if we choose to remain silent. And as we prepare to speak, we should ask ourselves these questions. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? May God help each of us to learn to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry.